Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. Welcome to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio, coming to you from the fiery oven of western Montana, eating smoke all day long and having a great time. We got an excellent guest here today. This is somebody that I've been friends with on Facebook for quite a while now. Been following what they've been doing and really enjoy all the stuff that they're putting out. And they have a lot of knowledge about Bigfoot. So I thought it would be interesting to have this person on the show to talk about it, and specifically about the MGs and Type 3s. So you guys out there that are interested in the enormous guys and face eaters, we got somebody on here that knows something about them that's going to tell us a little bit about them, and we got some other subjects we want to talk about too. So without further blabber from me, let me introduce my awesome guest this week, Khat Hansen. Welcome aboard, Khat.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Khat. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time now. There's like so many subjects that I could cover with you, and we were just talking about one, and maybe we should sort of go back into that a little bit here for a while, about how with Dave Pilates running around turning out his Missing 411 books and having a heyday with that and getting everybody generally worked up into a high state of awareness, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But he never really comes right out and says what his theory is on what he thinks is making these people disappear, and sort of kind of makes it look like he might think it has something to do with Bigfoot. And, well, it might. But I'm not entirely convinced of that, especially that Type 1 Bigfoots would be doing this sort of thing on any kind of a regular basis. So I thought I'd let Khat give us her 2 cents worth on what she thinks about that.
Cool. Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm going to say that I suck at your guys' classifications because I don't follow those. So I just refer to them as I was taught. So the Class 1s, I know, the Type 1s that you and I were talking about, those are just my big guys, what I call stay-a-ma.
They're stay-a-mas, yeah. And this is, for the people out there that are listening, we're talking about basic Type 1 Sasquatch, Patty-type Bigfoot.
Right. And, no, that's just I'm going to go even further than that because that's an hell no, okay? They don't eat people per se. I mean, sure, you're going to find maybe one, like a Hannibal Lecter in that group, but that's just your odds, okay? They're not going to go out and attack. Your average stay-a-ma is not going to go out and attack a human being and kidnap them and eat them and do the things that they're being suspected of doing. These horrible creatures that it's being painted to be. It's just not it, okay? Don't get me wrong. Right. I always say that they look like us, but their emotions are not our emotions. They're not us, okay? So them going out and shopping actively for humans to snatch off a trail, off the Boy Scout trail or whatever, no, I don't believe that. I don't accept that at all because I have interacted with quite a few in my group, and no, they're just not that way. Over my lifetime, no, I don't see that. What
Right.
I do see is that very specific group typing would hunt humans and does hunt humans. And I've spoken out about them a bunch of different times. I call them the face eaters. That's what we always called them. And for good reason, because they prefer heads. They really do, for some reason. That's the first thing that will get eaten. Usually eyeballs, I've found. But they go for the soft part of the head. They go for the eyes, they go for the tongue, they go for the nose, things like that. Ears pull off very easily. So I know I'm being morbid here, but I'm very categoric about what I'm saying.
Well, let me add to the morbidity here for a second. I sort of wondered if, I know that on occasion when Bigfoot are hunting deer, they may like snap their legs and then just haul them back with them to keep them alive
Right.
longer until they actually eat them.
Exactly.
If it bit off the lower part of the face, you would still remain alive, but you would be incapable of making sound.
Exactly. And that is what they're known for. These guys, people want to associate them with Bigfoot, okay? And I'll apologize to people out there because I throw the terminology around because it's just comfortable for me. You can call them Sasquatch, you can call them Stay-in-My, you can call them Bigfoot. I don't really care. My big thing with them is face eaters are face eaters, and that's what
Right.
they are. They're look like a Bigfoot, kind of, sort of. In the humanoid body type, they have that. And other than that, though, they're bigger, they're heavier, they've got that muzzle. I always compare it to the Beast of Seven Shoots.
Right.
If you see that,
these are the ones. Just for the fans out there that listen to this regularly. We're talking about the Type 3 Bigfoot here, the baboon face type ones.
yeah,
That are notoriously aggressive. Thank God they're not that common. But
No.
definitely bad news, and you don't want to run into one. It won't shake your hand. It won't sing Kumbaya with you.
Oh my God, no.
Not friendly.
No.
Not friendly.
No, not at all. And people need to be aware that these things, seriously, these things come after humans and stalk them. They will actually come down out of the mountain and stalk a human being for this, and that's just the way that they are. They choose to eat people, and I'm not sure if that is because people are easy prey, because let's face it, unless you are Grizzly Adams and you live in the woods 24/7, 365, you are out of your element. If you period. If you go to the woods maybe 2 times a year, you're still out of your element, okay?
Right.
But they are in their element. So to parade, for instance, a Boy Scout troop through a hunger, and I call it a hunger zone, okay? These guys don't farm. They don't cultivate. They don't do anything. They strictly are meat eaters, period. They don't eat grass. They don't eat trees. They don't do anything. They're not omnivores. They are carnivores. And when you see these guys, if you, God forbid, you do see one, you're going to notice that these guys have enormous fangs. And I'm talking canines like, again, say I can't remember what they're called, a dryas baboon, a hamadryas. That's the snout on them. That's what I always refer to them as. They've got that big canine like a baboon has, and it's there. It's very prominent. And
I was always kind of curious of what you'd think about this. Have you seen the fossil remains in the mock-up for Dinopithecus? And do you think that could be a relative? Because, man, it really looks similar. Giant prehistoric baboon.
Yes, it does. And I have said that for a long time. I'm an archaeologist by trade. And that, to me, struck when the first time I saw that, I just sat there thinking about the face eater that I had seen, and I was like, oh, my God, that's where it comes from,
Wow.
And you and I were talking about how we, here on Earth, we have different branches of different species. And I almost have to wonder if at some point, maybe, I'm not an expert, I can't say on that, but maybe they branched off. Maybe the big, hairy, furry guys, the stay-in-law that I know were branched off from these guys because they were less aggressive, less, into killing and it being more warlike, whereas these guys are.
Don't necessarily have to be even, any more related than we are to baboons, too, because look at all the fossil evidence they found of other relic hominids on Earth.
Right.
They're all human-looking, sort of. They're bipedal. Their skeletons look kind of similar to ours, but they're not humans.
Right. So there again, they look like us, but they're not us. Isn't that funny how that plays out? And place eaters are very much that way. And I find it, I haven't read but one of Paulides' books. And in it, I noticed that there were some things that I had already spoken to him about and explained to him. First of all, stay-in-law do not fold clothes. Okay, they don't.
Yeah, I can't picture Bigfoot doing that.
It doesn't have those little fingers for it. Okay, sorry, doesn't work like that. But I'm sorry, it doesn't work. Okay?
No, I know what you're talking about. They got fingers that are like as thick as a Twinkie.
Yeah.
It can be pretty hard to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a photo of one of their hands, where it's wrapped around the tree looking at me. I mean, his fingers are just enormous, okay? So no, he doesn't have the fine motor skills like that. But there are those among them that do have the fine motor skills like that, and those are the females, okay? So, because they are as big as the males. So their whole stature is much more petite. And
if you could call Patty petite, but I guess by comparison she is.
She is, but believe me, females compared to these guys, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I totally know what you're saying.
And I have a horror story on that as a child because I'm sure there's people out there that know who I am, and I did grow up with my group. And one of the things that the males used to do to me that I absolutely hated as a child was when I was being annoying, they would literally grab me by my head, put their hand on top of my head, and turn me around, pick me up, turn me around, and push me away from them. So, I can say they do not have fine motor skill. The males do not, because his hand would come all the way over the top of my head, fingers down by my nose, picking me up, go away, you're bugging us.
No, it's a good thing that you're light and you had really strong neck muscles. That's about all I can say about that one. Oh, my God.
That's
no
the one.
thanks.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I do know. But
get back to the subject of the Type 3s. I hate to interrupt you, but I wanted you to bring this up. I was listening to you talking about Type 3s on another person's show, and you mentioned that you had actually seen one. You had been out in the mountains and saw one. And when you mentioned where it was, my heart sank, and I went, oh, God, now I got to deal with those damn things around here. Because you saw the Bridger Mountains out here in Montana. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, Bridger, Montana. I used to live in Montana, and so I would go there and visit friends and go back during the times, to see people. And
hey, expatriate Montanan, come back.
Yeah, I know, huh? My favorite thing about Montana, no speed limit, so Leadfoot Cat goes zooming.
Yeah, I think there's no drink limit here either, judging by the people that are driving on the roads. They're pretty bad. It's dangerous.
Yes.
Seriously, they're way overconfident.
Yeah, they are, but I think most Montanans are, and that's okay. That's something that I do appreciate about Montana. They've got an attitude, and I love it.
Yeah, we live out here on the edge of civilization, and we're kind of happy with it. So you got to have an attitude like that, right?
Exactly, So, no, I was up there, I was visiting a friend, and he had one of those ridiculous little rescue shovels. I mean, it looks like a Tonka toy, for goodness sake, and we were up there wheeling around, and he got his what was his truck? I can't think what it was. It's either, I think it's a Bronco. He got his Bronco stuck. Anyway, I'm sitting here, well, we got to dig it out of the snow. It's cold. And he's like, oh, I got a shovel. And he pulls this thing out. I'm just sitting here looking and going, oh, my God, we're going to be here till Ice Age, next Ice Age. You know, I got to...
Might as well just wait for the spring thaw at this point.
So I left. I went wandering. You know, I was like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm here on vacation. I'm not doing physical labor. Okay.
Yeah.
So
with a tiny sand shovel from the beach, let them deal with it.
That's it. You know, I'm not doing it. So I'm up there wandering, and I know better because, like I said, I lived in Montana. I know what's up there. You know, and I know it's cold. So the bears aren't awake. I'm fine. You know, I'm cool. But I'm wandering around, and you know how when you're out in the wilderness, I mean, I don't know about other people, but for me, I have really good survival instincts, and I can tell when something's watching me, and I can even tell about how close it is, you know?
Yep.
And
I got that from hunting and all the years that I spent in woods that were infested with too many things, and I was pretty paranoid about it. And I actually got to the point where I could not only tell if something was watching me, I could tell if it was watching me thinking I was going to be a potential meal or not. Because it's different. You
do know. Thank you. Yes. So I'm out there, and I knew when I was walking, you know, because I walk very quietly, and that's something that drives everybody crazy who knows me, because it's just something my father instilled in me. You know, you walk quiet. And when I'm out there, when I was out there walking, I knew there was something there. You know, I could feel my space had been invaded. You know, not per se as in close to me, but I was just aware that there was something else there. And were you getting the alarm feeling without the it's actually watching me feeling? Right. Yeah. You know, there's something here. There's another predator here. Right. There's a big there's something here. And which kind of threw me because I knew, like I said, the bears are asleep. It's that cold. Yeah, it's winter. It's winter. They should be sleeping. Which not always is the case, by the way. I got a picture of a gigantic grizzly in somebody's backyard. They got it snapped on their security cam. It was wandering around in their yard. In the second half of January by Glacier Park. Oh, my God. You're kidding. No, I'm not kidding. They do wake up during the winter and go prowl around occasionally. So just because it's winter is no guarantee you're absolutely safe from bears. Yeah, because I had never seen one before in the winter when that far in, you know, and so... Yeah. But I agree with what you're saying. In general, during the winter, bears not very high on the priority list of things to worry about. You know, worry about mountain lions. Yeah, I was just going to say, mountain lions you could worry about, but you know what? I have found that when they're watching me, I can tell the difference between them. I can tell the difference between a wolf. You know, I can tell what's watching me, usually that way. And this I got the sense of was bigger, dangerous. And Jesus. When I come around this rock, you know, the bridgers there are really unique in that they have, you can be out walking in the middle of the forest and you'll find a big old piece of granite boulder, you know, and it freaks me out when I do that, you know, because I'm from Oregon and I expect my forest to be flat, you know, with mossy trees and things like that, you know. And so it's kind of unique to be walking out in these woods and to come around a boulder. You know, you've got a boulder the size of a small room flopped there, you know, and you got to walk around it. And I did just that, and I just stopped short dead because right there in front of me, he was there. He was on the other side of that, and oh God, he had his back to me, and so I had time to observe him. You know, the wind was blowing from him towards me. Okay, so he didn't smell me. Yeah. He didn't smell me. I had perfect observatory time, and I was standing there around the edge of this boulder, peeking my head out to watch him. He was enormous, and these guys do wear skins. You know, that's something that you and I were talking about a little bit ago. Different species, you know, different branches of different classifications. Of these guys use tools. You know, and face eaters are one of them. They do skins, and they're not. I don't want people thinking, oh, skins like caveman wears or someone on the walkway out in New York is wearing. No, they stink. They literally they're not tanned. They're not flensed. They're They've ripped the skin off of the animal. That's exactly what they've done. So they wear them, for, I would guess, to keep warm. It makes sense to me. I mean, they're up there on top of the mountain where it's 30, 40 below, yeah.
Yeah, even with a lot of hair on your body, you're still going to want some more protection.
So I was watching him, and he had, and they're not sewn together skin. They're not, literally. From what I gathered, just looking at this thing, someone had chewed or pounded a hole for the arm to go through. So there was that, but it wasn't like a coat. It was only one arm through it, and then the skin was hanging down.
Can you tell what kind of animal he had skinned to make that?
Yeah,
Can you tell what it was from?
I could tell. Real simple. It was a bear.
Okay.
It was a bear. And it still didn't fit him. I want that made abundantly clear. It didn't fit him. Okay, only one arm is shoved through it. So it's hanging down. I mean, they don't have the skill to wrap it around themselves per se, I don't believe. But they do have the ability to make the skin, I guess, to be functional in some form. I was watching him, and he was very meticulously looking through the rocks around the area, and he was, I want to say, from watching him, I did recognize what he was doing in my group. They like to look for small animals. They'll pull up a rock and see if there's a mouse underneath it or a nest or something like that. And
right.
I had the sense that's what he was doing. He was hunting. It was obvious. He was looking for something. And at some point, I think the wind shifted, or maybe he caught on that he was being watched, because he stopped and turned around and looked in my direction. But there again, I was up against that boulder and plastered to the side of it, where he couldn't see. He would have to walk around a little bit to see me. And then he went back to what he was doing. These guys are big, okay? I want people to understand. People think Bigfoot are big. These guys are a little bit bigger, okay? And
how tall do you think he was?
I want to say he's like 9.5, maybe 10 feet tall.
So big boy.
It's a big guy, okay? I mean, think about this, okay? This is a bear skin he's wearing, okay? And I'm not saying it was a grizzly skin. What I'm saying is it was a black bear skin, okay? And I can wrap a black bear skin around myself twice, okay? So, and a normal warrior that takes a bear skin usually makes a cape out of it, okay?
Right.
And it will wrap around him more than enough to keep him warm, a big guy.
So he's like a one-sleeve vest that he made out of a whole pair of
eyes. It's just hanging there, I mean, and so you're realizing, oh, my God, I'm looking at a bear skin, and, oh, my God, it's on this thing, and this thing it's not covering him. It's not coming down past his knees, and you're like, oh, God. They're huge, okay? And when they look at you, there's a very intelligent look in that face. Malevolent. There's a good word for it.
Yeah. What color eyes did he have, by the way? I'm curious about that.
This one had the green eyes. They were like a green, brown, and it was intimidating to me. It really was, because my alpha male in my group, Kiasa, has green eyes. So all I could think of was reverting back to as a child, when the males would get mad at me, they do this rumbling growl, and I was like, oh my God, the thing could eat me, and it terrified me. It really did. When I was talking about it, I don't think people realize that I get scared. I do, even though I bump into these things and I interact with some of them, I still get scared. I'm very scared, okay? I have to face my fears. I make myself do it. And I was out there with the realization that I'm out here away from my friend, and I'm scared. I'm scared, and this thing could come around the side of this and eat me at any point, and I would be vanished, gone. All you would find would be footprints. because it's nothing for him to snatch me up, or a man, for that matter. Because people don't realize when you start talking about size, people's brains kind of do a shutdown. They're like, oh, it's over 6 foot. I get it. No,
no, they don't. No.
Get it. No. This thing is massive. Okay, and even if you watched Harry and the Hendersons on the Disney Channel,
the guy in a furry suit, not even close to being as big.
Not even close. It's not even close. This thing was solid muscle. There was no fat on him, but he was healthy. But I'm saying as he walked, you could see each sinew, each muscle very, very defined. This thing was enormous. And
my
to
God,
think about,
Kat, of all the impossibly bad times to run into a face eater in the middle of a winter when it's hungry season. Oh, my God.
I know, and here's dumb old me standing there going, let's look at it.
I don't get a chance to see these very often. Might as well enjoy it before it eats me.
Well, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, well, damn, if I'm going to die today, at least let me look at it, because I had never really seen one that close.
Well, yeah, because humans can't really be friendly with them. If you get that close, they'll try and eat you. So how do you get to be close to see one? I know one other person that's seen one, and they got to see one climbing a cliff through their field glasses. Initially thought it was a bear, and then watched it go up the cliff and went, that is no bear. What the hell am I looking at? And that's when they got interested in Bigfoot. Because
your brain is not your friend. I've said that for years. It does everything it can to protect you, to keep you sane.
Right.
And I'm not going to lie. I'm sitting there. The wind has shifted. He's blowing towards me this smell. Okay, I've got dead skin hanging on him. He's not clean, and that makes sense to me because he's not going to be washing himself. In that type of environment, he needs to retain body heat. So whatever he has on, it's going to stay on. Mm-hmm. So I'm watching him, and he is doing complete and total hunt mode. He's very meticulously, methodically going through everything. And then he started to walk away, and I ducked even further back around that boulder because I didn't want him looking back over his shoulder, to see me.
No kidding.
And now here's where the stupid part comes in. Once he got a good ways further down the trail from me, I stepped out so that I could watch him walk away because I noticed something, and you're the first one on, interviews that I've ever told this to. Everybody else who knows me knows it. I watched him walk, and this is what freaked me out and why I don't like him. I already knew he was in hunt mode. Okay, now remember I told you my father taught me how to walk. I wore moccasins until I was 14 years old. Okay, so I walk like I'm hunting. This thing walked the same way. It was very methodic and very meticulous about how it put its foot down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a stayama where they're just walking, lumbering, whatever you want to call it, striding through the forest. That's what my big guys do. No, this guy was watching his foot placement. Mm-hmm. So that tells me, he's actively hunting, and he's making sure that he's not making noise, and maybe he's making sure that because I didn't go the way he went, so I don't know if maybe he had come up that way, and maybe he was walking back in his same footprints, you see? Mm-hmm. So that freaked me out. As a human being, that freaked me out a lot. Because I was thinking, I can die here real simply, and now that I'm watching him hunt, I got to get out of here. I got to go back and find my friend. I don't care how much he's dug that damn thing out. I'm helping. We're leaving, because it terrified me that bad to realize that I was that close. And to know, because I already know about these things. I've been told and taught about them. But to know that they actively have that intelligence behind that,
Yeah.
That was what scared me the most. It wasn't seeing it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't get, even people that are like really good hunters and stuff. You know, these things spend all their time in the woods. And you're talking about the type 3s here, which are active predators. They're not necessarily taking advantage of everything in the environment. They want meat. So they're acting like a predator. They are hiding their presence. They're hiding their tracks. They're hiding anything that would indicate that they're around the area at all, because they don't want to tip off the prey animals, and they definitely don't want to tip off the humans that there's something weird around there. So if anything, they're even more careful about hiding their tracks than the regular Bigfoot are.
Right. And like I said, it scared me enough that I didn't want to see them again. And unfortunately, I got called to right outside of Kentucky and had to go there to. And there again was another time that I had seen one. But this one to me was so strange in that it was down and about houses. And it took me a while to figure out, I'm not a predatory researcher. So I don't watch what animals do per se. I hunt, I track, I do that sort of thing. But I don't watch their behaviors that much. And what I found in them, and it blew my mind, was the fact that they came down to the edge of where the houses were before they were heading up into the forest. And they would come down and they would go through the big dumpsters, the big, I don't know what you call them, apartment dumpsters, I guess. That's the only thing I'm associated with.
Right.
And these houses had them 4 houses and 1 dumpster, 4 houses and 1 dumpster. And they were coming down and raiding the dumpsters. And then on their way back up, they would take an animal. And they were very smart. They would only take 1 animal each time they came. So it was like, well, maybe Fido wandered off, and as I was watching this, because I watched this experience, I experienced this for over 3 months. And while I was watching and learning about these guys, it amazed me how sneaky they were. They are just sneaky. To think that if they were to go hit a garbage can, for instance, then they would have to pick up that garbage can and put it all back in, put the lid on it, make sure that no one had ever noticed it. But to hit a dumpster, they could take whatever they wanted out of the dumpster, and then to take 1 animal every time they came. And in those 3 months, we had 4 dogs disappear, and that was it. It was so strange, because I just can't imagine the intelligence behind that. So I had to revise everything that I had been taught about them, and to realize they're very intelligent. They're very, very dangerous intelligence here. And people don't think about that when they're out in the woods. I mean, seriously, these stories that you hear about people, you get the Boy Scouts going to their camps, you get the Brownie girls going to their camps, you get people, hikers up along the trails. They're thinking, like I thought, the worst thing that you're ever going to have to deal with is a bear. No, there's something else out there that is way more predatory, way more dangerous, and very, very intelligent. Don't get me wrong, grizzly bears are very intelligent, but not like this. Not to the extent that this is. This is actively calculating, actively planning.
Yeah.
So
well, to put it in another perspective, most people are generally aware that gorillas are incredibly smart, but gorillas are herbivores. Imagine if the gorilla was a predator and had to think about how it was going to capture prey all the time and ambush it and hide its presence. How much more sneaky and smart would it seem?
Yeah, exactly. And you're talking, not as big of a body build, but still, it's, you look at a gorilla and your brain automatically associates, oh, that's a Bigfoot size. It's bigger than that. No. And
now, gorillas are little things. A big alpha male can punt a gorilla like a football. It's nothing that would challenge him.
No, and you tell people that, and they don't. It doesn't register in their brain. But I have a very good analogy for the size, because my alpha male is 9 foot tall, And when I had my house built, I have the front porch is in an awning, an arch, and it's a 15-foot arch. And when he comes to the house, he places his hand on that arch and bends down to look in.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's big. And, again, like most people just can't even relate to that. I had Rich Sewell on I was talking to here in one of the previous shows, and this part didn't get recorded, but or maybe it did. He was talking about how the guys over at Res Squatching had come up on this deserted cabin at night where, usually people don't go. And there was this big old alpha standing right next to it with his hand on the edge of the roof. And the roof was, like about 8, 9, 10 feet up there. So he was huge. And long gray hair. And he turned around and started walking off into the woods. And both the guys that were watching him said, he had to have been around 12 feet tall. And both of us got this weird impression when he was going off in the woods, because where the headlights of the car were shining was kind of like right where his butt was. And so when he turned around and went into the woods, we were kind of like looking at his butt. And both of us went, man, that looks like it looks like an elephant's butt. It's so huge. So picture how big an elephant's butt is, and then try and think of like something 12 feet tall that's got a butt like that big, and that's what we're trying to describe here. And the thing that always blows my mind on these things, Kat, is that how huge some of them can be, and yet they're still so good at hiding from us stupid, pathetic humans, and we can't seem to find them.
Yeah, I'll give you a good for instance on that stick Indians. Stick Indians are lone guys. They're loners. They're, when I teach people about them, I say just refer to them as the district manager, because they don't live in family groups. They are by themselves. They watch over the whole district. That's their territory. And then they have the smaller, territories inside of it. And stick Indians, they start out around 10, 12 feet tall. I've seen them as high as 17 feet would be that's not a guesstimate. That was measured. So 17 feet, yeah. We're talking big guys. They're very tall, very, I don't want to say skinny, but they're
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I had to try and explain this when I was doing the show on Mountain Giants for Sasquatch Chronicles, which is, again, one of the alternate names for Mountain Giants, Timber Giants. They're built more like Shaquille O'Neal, kind of. They're like a really, a kind of a beefed-out basketball player rather than like the Hulk.
Right. So exactly. That's a good analogy. That's perfect. Thank you. Because that's exactly it. They're very tall, very, almost like a lanky, but they've got the beef muscle part on it. But there's, compare that to a normal Sasquatch, no. Normal Sasquatch is a Hulk, like you said. He's got bumps and lumps on top of muscles and lumps. They're just, I mean, it's totally intimidating. That's the only animal I've ever seen that has muscle on its kneecaps.
I know, it's ridiculous. At first, when I saw, all I got to see him besides his face and his fingertips was his shins, and his shins were the same thickness as the huge ancient black spruce that he was hiding behind. I mean, my God, these things are just so massive.
And people don't even realize it. Yeah, they don't. There again, your brain shuts down, and people, when you talk to people about Bigfoot, oh yeah, I've seen them on TV, I've seen the Discovery Channel, yeah, 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall, I got it. No, you really don't.
No, you don't. No, I know the people that say that, like, oh, there was this Bigfoot, one of my friends saw this Bigfoot that was like 7 foot. I think the best example of this is Michael Cook. Michael Cook down in Kentucky, he saw one roll down a hillside and go splash into the river and got back up and climbed back up the hillside. And the only reason he saw it is because he was playing hooky, skipping school, fishing on the riverbank on the opposite side of the river when it happened. It scared the living hell out of him. And he was telling us about it, and we're like, well, how big do you think it was? This is up here in Montana. He was at the conference up here telling us about it, and he goes, well, shit had to be over 7 feet, probably close to 8 feet. We're like, oh, you just saw one of the little ones. Cute, man. You saw a little baby one. And he's like, baby one? How the hell big do they get up here in Montana?
Big, well, big.
Yeah, we were just razzing them on, but in general, it's kind of interesting that it does seem that the same sort of correlation with regular animals holds true with them. The further north you go, the bigger they tend to get because they want that, extra mass in comparison to the surface area of their body. It tends to hold in heat better, so they can deal with it better.
Right. And so I agree totally with that because further north you go, they do get bigger. And case in point, I grew up in Oregon and I grew up in Louisiana. 6 months here, 6 months there. And the big guys down in Louisiana in the swamps down there, no, they're nothing compared to the Stema in Oregon. Nothing. The Northwest, the Pacific Northwest. I look at them and it's just like you just said. Oh, you guys are little.
Yeah. Oh, little. You saw a little baby one. It was only 8 feet tall.
Oh, yeah.
We were just good-natured razzing them, but, like you're saying, there really is something behind that. It does seem to be that the further north you go, the bigger they get. And a lot of the reports that we get of the mountain giant type ones, or what you're calling stick Indians, come from Alaska. No surprise there. Plenty of food, plenty of land. A lot of the locals even know where they live and won't go there because they're smart. Lake Iliamna up there on the opposite side of the mountain range that borders it on one side is supposed to be a valley that they live in. And the locals absolutely refuse to go there. They're well aware that they live there. They just say, we don't go there and we don't want you going there because if you make them angry, they're going to come mess with us, so don't go there.
And to me, that's fascinating because that tells you there's something there intelligence-wise because they're going to come mess with them, So see, it's something more than an ape. And I have argued that point with people till I can't argue with
till the cows come home and then afterwards, yeah. One of the things that I've been doing my research on these guys and found that there are reports of them being in other parts of the world, and specifically I was talking to a researcher over in Scandinavia who's doing research on Bigfoot over there, and yes, there are Bigfoot there. But they're also doing research on, old historical archives and stuff and books in the Old Norse language, trying to get in contact with the Sami, the native people that live up in northern Norway, Sweden, and western Finland, and get some of their legends. And yeah, they have, a legend about basically Bigfoot. They call them forest people. But if you look at some of this other stuff, they're dealing with 3 types of giant cryptids over there. They got the Bigfoot, they got their frost giants, which are like the red-haired giants that we have over here in North America, in fact, almost identical. And then they've got a third thing that they call a troll. Well, if you go back far enough and you start looking at the actual descriptions of these trolls, and a lot of them include the tusks that the mountain giants seem to have, it starts looking like they're talking about friggin' mountain giants. The timber giants is what they were calling trolls. Same height, same body shape, same facial description. You go back far enough and get rid of all the modern art stuff that's been done on them, or even the mythological art stuff, and just deal exclusively with, reports. Angmar was up here in 580 and said he saw one and it looked like this sort of thing. It just seems like they're talking about the same exact critter, and maybe what the Norse were referring to as trolls is what you're calling a stick Indian.
Yeah, could very well be. And there again, I find it fascinating too, because you just brought up something that I've done a lot of research on in my own clan. I've found, and I don't know about this, you can tell me yay or nay, my reports on my group have shown that if it's red, if they have red hair, they're more aggressive. They're more outspoken. That's a good one for one of the ones. I'm not sure how that relates in. There again, it's got to do with bloodlines. I'm sure of it, because the red is predominant, and when I have a red-haired one brought into the clan or that is born in it, for some reason they are a better hunter. They're more aggressive, more active, is more vocal. They have less fear. They have a bravery about them that the other ones don't have. And I've found it really interesting. It fascinates me because it's got to do, I'm 50-50 on it here, with my own research. I've come to the conclusion that red is a recessive. It's either a recessive or it's because of the bloodline that it is associated with, is affiliated with. And I think that it is to do with that. It makes them a better hunter, makes them more aggressive, makes them more outspoken, just a little bit more active than the normal
one theory that I've been kicking around about these guys, and you're sort of like touching on the borders of it right here, is what if the trolls or the stick Indians, mountain giants, whatever you want to call them, what if they are not a static species? What if they're actually hybrids? What if at some point a gigantic adult male Bigfoot managed to get himself a younger female giant girlfriend and made babies?
Yeah. See, and I think you're right, because one of mine was brought in, okay, as a second female to my alpha male, and I called her Wild Woman. Okay, I never give.
Oh, I remember hearing about Wild Woman. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I never gave any of my guys names like this. Okay, This woman was out of control. I mean, she would literally, my children had to take a bus, okay? I had to drive 5 miles down the canyon to get them to the bus stop every morning, okay? There is an outcropping of rock, okay, that is there that when they made the road, you know, they blasted through the rock. She had no fear. She didn't care. Okay, I have neighbors. You know, I mean, they're not right on top of me, but I do have neighbors. And she had no fear. She was like, screw you. I'm going to stand up here and let the world see me every morning as you're driving down the canyon. Because people down at the bottom could see up onto that rock.
Oh, my
God. And they
could
see. She had no fear. She was like, screw you. I'm up here. What are you going to do about it? Come get me.
You know? Wow. Talk about breaking the rules. I bet the rest of the troop wasn't very friggin' happy about that behavior.
No, she got the boot eventually, but the point is that she was out of, there's that bravery, that wildness about her, you know, that the other ones never have. And they're just brown, gray, black, and then there's the red, you know, and first came her, and then, no, excuse me, she's second. Before that, growing up as a child, I've explained to people the males do this really funny little thing. It's amusing to me because I grew up with it. They wrestle, you know, and it's like they pick each other up and they throw each other down, and then it's like, yay, yeah, yay, I won. You know, I flipped you, I won. I'm the man. And we had a red one in the group as a child, and his name was Stinky. I called him Stinky. There again, there's the name. You know, I never understood why I named him different than the others, other than the fact that he was stinky, he was mean, he was grouchy, aggressive, and I was never left alone with him. They would never allow me to be near him alone, ever.
Wow. That's telling right there.
Isn't that? And so it's just like, then along here comes Wild Woman 40 years later, you know, and I'm watching her, and she's got the same characteristics. You know, she's very violent, very vocal, very just out there, you know. And so I'm wondering if, I think you're right. I think that it's got to do with the troll, whatever you want to call it, you know, frost giant, whatever you want to call it. It's that red. That red is thrown in there. And then here, I'm just, because I'm one of those people that's very strange, it makes you start wondering about the red-haired giants that you've heard about all over the world that were aggressive and mean, you know. So,
and again, you know, the other thing, not only aggressive and mean, but the way the Norse described their hair, it wasn't like orange red like humans with red hair. It was blood red. It was blood red. And they usually had like blue or green eyes, or blue seemed to be the predominant one. And then you get the descriptions of the giants here in North America. Well, they had red hair and blue eyes.
Yes.
Kind of a coincidence there. And then, you know, the other thing is that they had those same sort of attributes where they were just violent, out of control, ate humans. You know, there was like almost no dealing with them. There's only one story I heard of where there was a tribe that had actually made a deal with one of these things to not get attacked by it, and they were feeding him buffalo. Every so often they'd bring him a couple buffalo, and so he wouldn't screw with the tribe. And white man showed up and started shooting all the buffalo, and they went up and talked to him and went, hey man, we're out of food here. Well, there's no buffalo, and but we can like rustle you a couple of cows. The white man's cattle is pretty yummy. We've ate some of them. And apparently the troll just went, nah, I'm sick of this. Too many humans around here now anyway. I'm just going to move further out in the woods, and you guys can have this territory. See you later. And that was the last day I ever saw them. But other than that, it's always just like these things are vicious, violent, aggressive, eat humans, you know, just really nasty, vicious temperament. And they've got that red hair. And then you look at a lot of the reports that you get of Bigfoot encounters and, you know, whatever type of Bigfoot it may have been, it seems like a lot of the reports where they're really getting chased, the behavior is very aggressive. A lot of it seems to be the ones with this, like, orange, you know, brown-orange, reddish type hair.
Thank you. See, I'm telling you, I've been saying this for years. And the other thing that I've noticed about them is predominantly my stema that I interact with all have double rows of teeth. Okay, they all do in one form or another. Some of them, they're not formed all the way. Some there are, but they're not good dental. They don't look like they should. Okay, if they're going to be perfect teeth, and usually I would expect the perfect teeth to be a characteristic that carried back through. Okay. Wild woman, she had 2 sets of teeth. I had pictures up on my website years ago that got hacked. And I got the picture of her full on roaring at me with her mouth. And you could see the double rows of teeth in those. And they were perfect double rows of teeth. Perfect.
Wow.
So that is just something that I've always...
Well, you know who else has got the attribution of supposedly having double rows of teeth?
Nephilim.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, they're supposed to have 6 digits, too, so...
Yeah.
You know, and that's been one of my pet theories for a while, that the standard Bigfoot that we think of may be in some way related to them. May not, you know, I'm not saying they're directly that they're Nephilim or something, but they may be in some way related to them if you accept the notion that at some point in the history of the past that we had a lot higher tech level. It may have been the giants that actually had that tech level. They may have had tech equivalent to what we've got right now, in which case they could have created these things to just, you know, we need a guard dog for the yard, let's make a Wendigo. We need somebody to go dig some gold out of the ground, let's make type 1s. You know, I mean, we just don't know. All this is guesswork.
Yeah, it's all just passed down, you know, and I mean, don't get me wrong, there are things that are kept hidden in different cultures, you know, and I'm going to be talking about that, by the way, on my channel, so you know, don't get a big shock out of it. I'm going to do a little bit of talking about that one, but there are things that we've lost information on, and I think that these guys, there's an integral part there, you know, that's missing, and I think that somewhere somebody played with it, with experimented, you know, and I do talk about the legend about how dogmen type 3s, whatever you want to call them, were made, you know, because that there again, if you listen to it as an archaeologist and you understand what you're looking for, it's gene manipulation.
Right.
You know, it's total gene manipulation and gene splicing. So it's fascinating to me that you have the same theory there that I do, but yours is more with the trolls and what went on that way. So
the reason that I got part of this theory, dear, is because I actually have talked to people that purport to be government insiders and were involved with the government side of the whole Bigfoot thing. And their claim is that if you got some DNA, especially from ones other than type 1s, and looked at it, you would know for a fact immediately that it was not a natural life form, that it was synthetically made, because it's got pieces of other DNA codes from other animals spliced into it.
Really? That's interesting. That makes sense. But then again, I mean, if you do religious study, you know, what were the angels doing? The fallen angels, they were doing the same thing. You know, they were experimenting and doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you go back and you look at, especially at the apocryphal books, where a lot of them were excluded from the Bible because it was just like, well, there's too much stuff about the olden days that we don't really need. It's not important in the narrative of Jesus and how he came into being. That could be why they excluded it. It could also be because the Vatican is running an agenda and is trying to cover up a bunch of information. Make your own decision. But if you look at like the Book of Jubilees, Jasher, Book of Ogius, the Book of Og 1 and 2, you know, some of this stuff, and you start comparing, it's all got like little pieces of this story in it. And if you read all of them, you can put the story together. Right. And not only were the Nephilim pretty much running the earth and using humans as slaves and or food items, but they were creating all kinds of other things, because, you know, in the Bible, it says that, well, the earth had become corrupt and wicked and God decided to destroy it. But if you read these other books, it explains how they made the world corrupt and wicked. And what it was is that, you know, everybody goes, well, the angels came down and they mated with human females, and that's how they produced these giants. Well, did they? Because it also said that they were doing their vile, wicked things with reptiles and birds and fish and mammals and plants and trees and vegetables and fruit. And so they're running around like physically raping everything in sight and somehow producing hybrids with it, or they're using DNA tinkering to make it. Which sounds more reasonable to you? And if they're using DNA tinkering to make it, that means they can be making all sorts of interesting life forms. Oh, like dinosaurs, for example. You know, a T-Rex that's 50 feet long, 25, 30 feet high is pretty terrifying to us. But if you're a 35-foot-tall giant, that's like having a guard dog. Oh, let's make a couple of them. I'll keep them around my castle to keep those pesky humans away. You know, so you start looking at it in this light, it makes the whole history of the Earth look really different than the way it's being presented to us, looking through it from that viewpoint.
Right, and I agree with that 100%, because that's the same exact way. Because here's a good one. As a child, I was brought up Catholic until I was 13 years old, okay? So every summer I went and spent at the grotto with the nuns. I stayed there with them every summer. Okay? So I take the book.
And how much fun did you have during your summers? None.
None.
Sorry. None. Couldn't resist, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and me being the child that I was, you know, I'd already done a presentation on Bigfoot for my 4-H club. They didn't know. You know, my sisters that were taking care of me there, they knew. Okay, the priest there that was alongside of them, you know, worked with them, he knew as well about my monster, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. So,
did any of them believe that you actually were seeing monsters, or did they just think you were like, wee, wee, wee?
Oh no, like I said, I had the 4-H example. Talking about that. Okay. Yeah, I'd done basically forensic example here. My presentation for them, you know, and I even had 4 different types of birds and 4 different females. You know, show them.
Losing you again.
I don't know what's going on with this phone. I'm just sitting in the same position.
Are you on a cell phone? Maybe the battery's getting low.
Well, let me look. No, my battery charge is fully charged.
Huh.
You know, okay, I bet you it's the weather. It's the government. Yeah. Don't talk about Bigfoot, damn it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was doing that show on the Giants with Dave, and I got to the second part of we were recording into the second hour, and all of a sudden my phone just died. And I tried to call back, and I couldn't, and I looked at the phone, and it said no signal. And like, no signal. I'm sitting in my house where I always talk on the phone. So I went upstairs and I borrowed my roommate's phone, and I got on for like another 10 minutes, and that was it. And then his phone went dead, and he had just charged it.
Oh, my word.
So, yeah, what are the odds against that? Pretty gigantic. It looks suspicious to me. So anyway.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Things like that. I don't know, because you remember Keel wrote about that. when he was dealing with the Mothman, he was speaking about the strange, what do you call those? Ultra-terrestrials. Do you know about those?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to wonder.
My theory as far as the ultra-terrestrial thing goes, they talk about the extraterrestrials, the aliens from another planet, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they keep telling us they're from another place, and then when we can actually verify it, they change their story. And I don't think that they're from some other star or planet. I think they're from another dimension. They're just coming from they're from right here in another dimension, and they're just dimensional traveling to get here and lying their asses off. That's my personal guess.
That's my opinion as well. So I wonder at times, like when I'm dealing with the Bigfoot beings, here if they're not. This is crazy. This is something that I haven't ever told anybody except for when I was a little kid. I used to tell my dad all the time. I said, "What if they have babysitters? What if they have keepers?" So we don't know about it, because I used to wonder, because there were times when they would do things and then they would act like they were going to get in trouble for doing it. Who's going to discipline them, for God's sake?
Yeah, exactly. What can be scaring them that they're going to get in trouble? That's kind of confusing.
Yeah, and to this day they still do it. When they do something that they're not supposed to do, they always act weird, and I'm like, yeah, what am I going to do there? Am I going to come out with my big staff that I use for ceremonies and whack you upside the head? I don't think so.
Yeah, you'll reach up and swing it as hard as you can and hit them in the knees, and they'll go, "What's that?"
Yeah.
It's Khat hitting me with a stick. I guess I did something wrong.
And there's exactly, and I mean, you're laughing like crazy, but here's the funny part. And it's not funny. It is sad and pathetic on my part. Growing up with them, I'm going to say that I do have a temper. And when I've been pushed or shoved to the point where I can't take it anymore, I have fought back. Okay, so I look like something out of, I don't know, the world's stupidest cartoon with this I'm attacking this person, this big thing, and they're just sitting here. I've been smacked, shoved off, and
I'm just kind of like picturing a leprechaun punching Conan the Barbarian in the shins or something.
That's what it's like, And the worst part of it came at 35 years of age when I did flip out again on them. I mean, I'm not saying it's been a lot, but it's gone there. And to have them literally do to me like they did as a child, pick me up by my head and turn me around and go, "Get the hell out of here," shove me away. That was not a good experience,
It's a real stark reminder, though, that no matter how big you get, you're still way, way outmatched by these guys.
I've got big boys, okay? My sons are over 6'3", 6'4". I've got one that's 6'7". Okay? They look tiny compared to these guys. Okay, I'm serious as a heart attack. People don't get the idea of the size until you are up against them. A really good example is I had a friend who came to visit me. She was walking from her house to my house, okay, in the wintertime, thinking, there's nothing here. It's rainy. It's a little bit rainy and windy, but I'm going to get to Khat's house. No big deal. So she's walking, and she stops because sitting about, 50 yards, she would be a pretty good guess from what she was showing me. In front of her is what she called a hill with hair. What? I said, what? And she says, yeah. She says, I didn't think anything of it until I got to that hill, she said. And then I realized what was wrong with the hill. The wind was blowing, and you could see the hair moving. She said, and then I realized, hey, that's not a hill. And I got to go to Khat's, and I'm not going to Khat's anymore. So she turned around and ran. Okay, when she got home, she called me. She said, I was coming to visit you, but I'm not coming to visit you anymore. She said, if I come, I'm driving. And I said, why? Then she started telling me about the hill with hair. I said, what color was the hair? Oh, it was kind of like a blondie brown. I said, oh, that was Tall Woman. She was out there. Tall Woman is small. Okay.
And she's little, yeah. God.
So it's just that sort of size. People don't get it until you actually are face to face with it. Then you're like, oh my God. It's terrifying. It really is, because you learn to adapt to it if you're going to be out with and about with them. This person can reach over with their hand and literally crush me like a washcloth, like you wring out a washcloth with one hand. Okay? This is to know this and to be around them is something completely different, you know?
Yeah.
And so to see that and then wonder about a stick Indian, I've only seen a stick Indian, I count time on my hands, both hands, okay? Both times I didn't want to get anywhere near it because to me it looked as tall as a freaking tree. This person can reach over with their hand and literally crush me like a washcloth, like you wring out a washcloth with one hand. Okay? This is to know this and to be around them is something completely different, you know?
Yeah.
And so to see that and then wonder about a stick Indian, I've only seen a stick Indian, I count time on my hands, both hands. Okay? Both times I didn't want to get anywhere near it because to me it looked as tall as a freaking tree. You know, and like I said, I grew up in Oregon. I'm around cedar trees.
Can you go in a little bit more depth about when you actually saw one of these things and what the situation was and what it was like?
I sure can. I lived in Oregon, and I used to yell and whoop. I still do. When I'm taking stuff up to my group for food, I have a whoop. I yell for them to come so they know I'm there, and that I'm dropping stuff off. They may not come, just so they know that I'm dropping something off. And if I drop off, for instance, a javelina or a sheep or a goat or whatever, I'm taking up to them, I need them to know that I dropped it off and that in case something else, like a cat comes and grabs it or a coyote or whatever, and drags it off. Mm-hmm. So I always whooped. I've done that ever since I was a kid. And I would take things down to my group and whoop for them.
So they know there's food over here now. Woohoo!
Yeah, exactly. We can go over there and get it. Well, this time I thought I was being smart. I really didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I really did not. My uncle had shown me how to whistle, where you take your fingers, in a circle and put them in your mouth and whistle.
Yeah.
And I was proud, that I'd learned how to do that. So I had all this stuff left over from dinner, and I was taking it down to them in a big brown grocery bag, and I was walking, and I didn't want to go all the way down into the canyon, because it's a bit of a hike. You got to go down into the canyon, down past the creek, up over on the other side, and drop this stuff off. So I thought, instead of yelling, I thought this shrill whistle would be louder and they could come get it from me, and just come get it up on the side of the top of the canyon part, so I didn't have to go down to the bottom of the canyon. And in doing this, I thought, well, I'll just whistle. Wrong thing for me to do. I had no idea. I let out this big shrill whistle, waited a second, and then did it again. And as soon as I did it the second time, I could see the trees. Okay, Oregon is very overgrown. We have moss, we have bushes everywhere. You know, I mean, it's a rainforest. So
it's Jurassic Park looking, basically.
Yeah. I watched this thing come through the trees, the bushes, and it just was stepping through them, parting. Think about watching a dinosaur movie when you know a dinosaur's coming. You know how they show all the trees moving and things. It was like that. And only they were being squished, pushed down out of its way. And then the next thing I realized, I'm standing on the side of a hill, at the top of this hill. And this thing steps out, and it's almost eye level with me. Okay? And I'm like, oh my God, what are you? You know, it was enormous. Absolutely enormous. Hansen, they were big. Don't get me wrong. These guys are giants. This thing way over their head, like I said, 17 feet tall. That
was
head
it a male?
It was a male. They're always male. Always.
Did he have the lower tusks?
He had one tusk, only one, where it was broken. Yeah. And he was standing there just staring at me, and he was doing the, I call it intimidation breathing, what they do.
Jesus. Yeah. Was he doing the puffing thing? You know.
Yeah. I just stood there, had my garbage, my brown bags full of their food, you know, and I just literally just grabbed them and started to run, and then I realized, no, you can just have them. And I threw them. I threw it and went running. I mean, I hauled butt up the rest of the way to the hill to the house. When I got there, my uncle was looking at me, and he said, what is wrong with you? And I guess I was white as a ghost. And I told him, and he started shaking me. He said, don't you ever whistle when you're out there. He said, because if you do, that calls them. He said, that's part of their language. He said, do not ever do that. And to this day, it is something that I have drilled into my kids when we're interacting. Do not whistle under any circumstance. I don't care. You know, if it's Yankee Doodle Dead, don't do it. Because I have been able to show my children on paper from the reports of people missing or people that have interactions when they're out in the forest, they were heard whistling. They were heard whistling. And I'm like, there you go.
And as long as we're on the subject, we should bring up the two important points here. I've heard other reports, and some of them going back a long ways, of people hearing this really loud, high-pitched whistling going through the forest, going to see what it was, and spotting a troll, mountain giant, stick Indian, whatever you want to call it.
There we go.
And then, and the other thing that we should really bring up at this point, there's another cryptid that communicates by whistling. And we're same one we're talking about on this show here, the Gugwe's, the Type 3, the Tugawee, the Bear Man, the Face Eater, they whistle. But there's a difference now, right? They almost have like a whistling language where like the tone and stuff will change so they can actually, they can communicate to each other via whistling. And the mountain giants are just sort of using it like a warning. Hey, I'm a troll. I'm right here. Notice this nice loud whistling. I'll kill you.
Yeah. It's like a tea kettle whistling. You know, it's very sharp, very piercing.
Right. And really loud.
Yes.
And so when you gave him that big loud whistle, he went, oh, there's another troll over here. Let's go see what's going on.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to kick its butt.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's probably it. You know, that's what I think happened to one guy here that went missing in the Bitterroot Valley here in 2014. He decided to go out to Ambrose Creek Saddle, George Alex Ballman. He was going to chop some wood. They just said in the paper that he was going to go gather firewood. Now, my guess is that he was splitting wood.
Oh, yeah.
Which you know what that sounds like.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
nearby Alpha came wandering up and went, oh, so there's a challenger, somebody over here wood knocking, I'm going to go kick his ass. Showed up, saw Lone Dum-Dum, and went, well, this pissed me off, I'm just going to snap his neck and haul him away. And nobody else will come back and do this. Well, they had a helicopter there for 2 days trying to find him. Nothing. They had 3 dog teams there trying to find a scent trail. Nothing. His abandoned truck was there. 2 weeks later, they found his torn limb from limb remains spread over about 40 feet of a thickly wooded hillside about 2 miles from where he went missing.
See, there you go, torn apart. See, and that's what I've told people for years. Why would you go out and go call blasting and doing this stuff when you don't even know the language? You know, for all you know, your recorded calls could be yelling at them, you know, F you, F you.
Yeah.
You kind of want to kick your butt. You know?
So, yeah, just to drive that point home even further, man, if you're out in the woods and you're hearing whistling, make sure that it's a human before you go check it out. You know, and if you're hearing this weird whistling that's changing like pitch and tone and stuff, or it sounds kind of like, you know, birds trying to talk to each other or something, you're probably talking about, there's probably a type 3 there. Really don't go there.
Yeah, please don't, because that's exactly what they sound like. I've always told people, you remember when you could go to the fair and you could get those little discs and put them on your tongue and whistle like a bird, you know, blow through them and things. That's, don't do that, please. Just don't.
Jesus.
Because, can you imagine? I can't, because I'm terrified. I'm pretty brave because I have to be brave. You know, I'm a mom to my kids, you know, and I have to do the things that I have to do, and I had to raise my boys to be boys. But I'll tell you what, ding, face eaters, ding, thick Indians, no. It's just one of those things, people ask me all the time, well, don't you want to do it? No, I don't want to do it again. I'm very fine interacting with my family. I really don't need to see them again. I don't need to interact with them if I don't have to, because they are that terrifying. You know, and there are monsters out there. There are, whether people like it or not. You know, we're apex predators as long as we're inside our cities. You know, where we live, because we made them. You know, we conform our cities to us. Go out in the woods, you're not apex. I don't care what you think, you're not. You know, people always tell me humans are apex predators. No, you're not a food chain. Because if I were to dump you out there with no weapons. Really? You think you're going to take on a bear?
No. Nope. We're pitifully under-equipped and under-trained. We don't have a chance if we haven't got our technology with us. And that's the bottom line. And they make a living out there day and night, year in, year out, without having basically any technology. So we got no chance in their environment. They're, you know, I like to liken it to, okay, you're going to go out and you're going to find Bigfoot. Well, let's paint a picture here for you. Let's assume that, let's change Bigfoot and let's make him just like a human, okay? And this Bigfoot now is going to be a special forces, we'll say Marine Recon, okay? And you're going to go out in the woods and you're going to find him. Now, Marine Recon is not nearly as well trained as a Bigfoot is, but they're pretty well trained compared to a human. Now let's put things in perspective. Now you're going to go out and you're going to find this Marine Recon guy who's out in the woods, and to put things in perspective, we're going to make you and your team 5-year-old humans. Now, what's your chance that you're going to be able to sneak up on this guy? Well, he's sitting up on top of the hill watching you and chuckling to himself and following you around all day, and you're finding Jack. And this is a good analogy for what your chances are of finding Bigfoot.
Yep, it is. Because they're doing exactly what you just said. They're following you around. You know, people don't even realize that. They follow you and they trail you. And here's the one that's even scarier that most people don't even think about, okay? They go out in the woods, they have their interaction, and their house is 5 miles away from said trailhead, you know?
Yeah.
Excuse me, you don't think that they're going to follow you home?
Well, not only that, at the speed they can move, 5 miles is like, oh, they could be there in 10 minutes and hardly even break a sweat.
You know, so now you've just shown them where you live and whatever you may have around your house that's interesting. You know, dogs.
Oh, yeah. That's another thing. I mean, I know you've had troops that you have interaction with, and it's a little bit different situation than somebody that's just going into the woods cold, finds a Bigfoot troop, and starts doing things with them. I personally do not recommend that anybody habituates with food. because
Oh
I
my
don't
God.
think that that's a good idea. That you're going to end up with a situation where it's sort of like feeding a bear, only almost worse, because you're giving them what they may start to consider to be tribute. And they're going to start going, oh, you're finally admitting that you're lower on the pecking scale than me, and you're giving me my just due. Here's my tribute. And then when you don't show up with it, where's my tribute, stupid human? I'm going to whip your ass. Then they get mad.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And I want to make something clear here too, because that's a good thing that you just brought up, because I didn't state it earlier. Most people who know me and follow me know that the reason that I take up sheep or goat or javelina, whatever is been killed, is not because I want to. It is because I have made an agreement with my group in that if I take something up, they will not go to the rancher who lives 2 miles down the road and kill 10 of his sheep. Okay?
Right.
So this has been a long time, I guess you want to say, agreement between them and I. If I would take them up big game that is enough to give them something to eat, they will not go kill, because there was a time when I did not do this. And they were going crazy here. They were attacking the cows, that one of my ranchers had up the way. They were attacking the sheep. They were attacking pigs. All his pigs disappeared. I mean, it just got to the point where, I have to live here, and my neighbors are going to kill me. They're like, there's something big on your property, and we know it. And it's like this: either you get that stuff to stop, or we're going to have to come over there and go hunting. So it became a way for me to make sure that there was an agreement in place. Now, do they always abide? Yeah, do they abide by it all the time? No. Do I end up paying for it? Yes. I hate swapping down $1,000 for a cow that got its head ripped off. Yeah, it really ticks me off. Okay, so for the most part, though, as long as I do this and this agreement stays in place, then we're pretty good, But do I feel like I'm over a barrel on it? Hell yes, I do. Okay? I get very...
Them little suckers tricked you, Khat. They got you. They habituated you.
I know. And what you're saying is very true. I tell people all the time, for God's sake, don't feed them in your yard. Don't leave them bread trails coming through. And I have had like 6 people tell me, well, I finally got them to come to my yard. And I'm like, oh my God.
Let me tell you what happens when you keep attracting them to your yard for years. And this is the best case scenario. There's a little old lady that lives out in the hills and in the mountains over on the East Coast, and she knows one of my friends who's very interested in Bigfoot. And she started talking to him, and it turns out that until recently, her husband just died a few years ago. Her and her husband had both been habituating a troop of them, to the point where these things were not afraid to be seen by them at all. They'd show up right in broad daylight and come get food. And they had a little youngster with them who at the time was, running around on all fours and being playful and fun. And so they named him Scooter. Well, here it is, 10 years later, the husband is dead. The old lady's still out there. The Bigfooter's still hanging around on her property. And Scooter is like 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
So my friend's out there camping out in his car for a few days just to do some research and take a look at what's around the property and look at tracks and stuff like that. And, he saw them right away. They were like around there. It's pretty obvious. So he's sleeping in the back of his car. In the middle of the night, he wakes up. Nature's calling. Oh, my God, I got to get out and, take care of it. Opens up the door, takes like 3 or 4 steps and unzips his fly, standing there taking care of business. And it's really dark, and he's kind of looking around a little bit down at the ground, obviously, because, when you're a guy and you're doing that, you're, like, making sure you're not getting it on yourself. Yeah. And his eyes sort of, like, scan a little bit to the left, 3 or 4 feet. And there's these huge black things. And he looks at it, and he starts looking up. I just about fell over backwards. There's Scooter, like 4 feet away, standing there watching me pee. I just about had a damn heart attack. And he just looked at me like, what are you doing? What's up? Yeah, scared the living hell out of him.
Yeah, that would do it. That would definitely do it. He's lucky he didn't get his car peed on. He really is.
Yeah. I said, well, what'd you do at that point? And he goes, well, what can you do? I was kind of surprised I was still peeing, so I finished it off, and then I jumped back in the car.
Oh, my act.
So, fun stuff. Hey, before I forget now, there's one more thing that I'd like to bring up and sort of get your opinion on. And we were talking about the Missing 411 books and Dave Pilates and all of his big, massive effort to collect all of these pieces of data from all over the place and try and make some sense out of them. And neither one of us think that Bigfoot Type 1 is really the culprit behind this. And I figured I'd give you an opportunity to go, okay, there's no Dave Pilates. Khat Hansen is out there doing all this research, turning out the books, getting all this information. Now, if Khat Hansen is looking at all this information, what is Khat going to say is probably the likely culprit or culprits that are making people disappear?
There are two. And it's not what he's saying. You know, that's what you and I had discussed. I'm just like, okay, he sat and interviewed me for over 3.5 hours for this, you know, and I told him then, and I say it now emphatically, it is not your type 1s, okay? You've got face eaters are predominant, and I want to say something here in that I'm not able to do any type of physical research to go live among the face eaters, but
who the hell could? Don't eat your face. You can't go around.
No.
This isn't like a Diane Fossey thing. Oh, no, make them my friends. No, they'll just eat you.
People ask me this stuff. I'm serious. You know, they were like, well, if you know somebody, why don't you go live among them? You know, and I'm like, oh, my God. Okay, sure. I don't have a death wish, okay? But my point is this. From the reports, and I get lots of reports from people, lots sent to me because they know what I'm doing and they know that I'm interested. They're breeding, and guess what? They're not as few and far between as people think. They're breeding, so they are having bigger troops, as in one of the people that I did get a report from lives down that mountain that I told you about in Kentucky. He's counted 14 of them.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah, so Kuhnbo's been doing some research on that, too, and he's found 3 areas in the south where he's absolutely sure that there's troops of Type 3 living. But beyond that, he hasn't found very many of them. Mostly what they're running into down there is 1s and 2s.
Well, here's another one, too. In Colorado, this one was classic, okay? I got a person who told me they started removing the wheels on my truck.
What?
I said, what? And he said, yeah. He said, I knew they were there, and I didn't think they knew I was there because I parked 10 miles down the mountain before I hiked in. He said, I came back to find the wheels removed off the back of my truck with big holes in them.
Oh, my God.
He said, I didn't know what to do. He said, so I have a CB on my radio, on my truck, and I called out and luckily was able to get somebody. He said, but I locked myself in the truck when I realized that they had ripped the tires, my wheels, off of my truck and eaten my tires. He said they were making it very well known that, hey, you know what, MFer, you're in my area and I want you here. He said, I was sitting there with a 44 and a shotgun hanging in the back of the truck. He said, and I want you to know, Khat, he said, I was scared witless. He said, I felt like I was the most unprepared person in the world. And I knew they were up there. He said, I knew they were up there, and I've been watching them, you know, and he said, in this group, when he started watching this group, he said there were 5, and he was watching them across mountains, okay? He was on one ridge and looking clear over to another ridge and watching them through his scope, okay? So he had been watching them, and they went and grew in size. The group up there now, he says, there's 12 of them. So they are breeding. They are breeding.
Absolutely.
And people need to be aware of this. So when you're hiking, you know, please, you know, like I said, bears, lions, tigers, bears, oh my. No, you guys really need to be a little concerned here because if they're breeding and our climate is getting to the point where, hey, it's conducive to their breeding, they're going to need more food. and in needing more food, they're going to take the easiest food supply, okay? And easy peasy food supply are humans, okay? Because we're dumb. You know, we're like, hey, let's go out here for a picnic. And in the meantime, let's take 20,000 pounds of food with us, and it smells good, and we let everything know. You know, plus we're noisy. We've got children. And people don't like to think about this, but children are really, really a good food source for an animal because they don't fight back. They're slow. They always lag behind. They're weaker, you know, and this is true. So think about that, okay? If you're out there in their area and these things are breeding and they're more and more and more, which, you know, it's just odds. You know, you can sit there and figure out numbers, roll the numbers and figure them out, but they're working it, you know, and they're working it to their advantage because we are sending people into the mountains in this time frame. There's more of us than any other unprecedented time. You know, we're hiking. We're trying to get back to nature. Added to the fact that there's how many billions of us out there.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, before you get too far with this thought, let me make some quick additions on here that, yes, there are more of us. There are also less of us living in the woods than there used to be. There's big areas up in Canada that used to have people living in that don't anymore. Right. And the reason they were there is because it was a different time period. They were fur trapping. They were, you know, prospecting for gold or whatever. So, I mean, that's like common in Alaska and stuff. You just find an abandoned cabin. There's nobody living there. Right. So, you know, there's more of us, but we are more clustered together in big cities than we used to be. Yep. Now, at the same time, we've got more agriculture going. There's more crops growing on this continent than there probably has ever been before. And that's contributing to a gigantic increase in the white-tailed deer population. The white-tailed deer population is the highest it's ever been in North America. So there's one food source for them. Plus you've got all the crops you can raid. Plus you've got the garbage that we leave lying around. And we just went into this a couple episodes ago where we were talking about the contagion theory that the whole population of Bigfoot here in North America had been decimated by the diseases that the white man brought over at the same time that he killed off all the natives. And that it may be that just finally at this point their populations are starting to recover enough that there's more of them around, hence the reason we're seeing more of them. Not because we're any trickier or there's more of us in the woods, just that there's more of them. So there's more opportunities for them to make a mistake and for us to see one of them.
Exactly. I agree with that because there are more of them, like I just said. And here in Arizona, we're brilliant because the Hohokam Indians were here, you know, and they had this amazing canal system set up across this entire state, okay? Mm-hmm. And when the white people moved here and populated it even more, they took those canals and they built off of those existing canals. So we've made them, shored them up, poured cement in them, and you know they're still here. We use them; they're working canals, and all of the reports that you get here at some point have to do with the canals because they're coming down out of the mountains here and drinking out of the canals. And I know that firsthand because I've got a canal right here, and they do it all the time. They wade in them, they catch, and see, people think, oh, it's just a canal; it just has water for the crops. No, guess what? We have actual channel cats that live in the canals. Yeah. They're big here. So
and anywhere in the country, the waterways are travel routes for them because they got water right there. They always got something to drink. Animals come down and get a drink. There's a food source. There's water there, so there's more plants growing around it. So you got berries and fruit and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, generally those areas where there's waterways and there's trees and stuff growing around them, there's more cover. So even in denuded areas, they can stay near the waterway and sneak through at night. You'll never even know they were there.
Right. And that's what I had posted a video to one of the groups that I used to belong to. I don't anymore, but showing how far my house was, where my house was to the canal, to the mountain. And I said, what I was pointing out, everybody didn't understand why I kept showing the ground cover that's here. You know, we've got these big mesquite bushes, creosote bushes, you know, and I said, listen, they come down off these, and they sit here in the daytime. I mean, I can take video of them sitting right there in the daytime in a creosote bush, you know, sitting there watching everything. Because, you know, people don't even realize it, that they're there, you know, because that's how good they are. They just sit there, and what really got me was I had a neighbor, she's a neighbor now, built a $5 million house, and she said, these things are coming out of the hills right here up into my backyard. She goes, I didn't want to have to put a fence in my backyard, and now, damn it, I have to put a fence in because I saw them. And I said, well, I'm sorry, what do you want? You've made it so that they want to come to your yard. You've planted orange trees, you've planted apple trees, you've planted some pears, you've got some wild grapes growing there. I'm like, well, duh.
Yeah, gee, I wonder why they're there. They're opportunists. You've got tons of food hanging around there.
Yeah, I was just like, whatever, lady. Sorry.
Well, before we get too far away from the subject and I forget about it, Type 3s, more important information about Type 3s. Have not seen a Type 3 myself, don't know about this personally. I have seen a Type 4. It had claws on its hands that looked like friggin' talons. Do Type 3s, or maybe you know about Type 4s too, do they have claws on their feet? Do they show in their tracks? Is there any way, if you find a Bigfoot-looking track out in the woods, can you tell if it's a face eater or a regular Sasquatch?
I can do it. I always tell people this about them, okay? There's two qualities. When a Bigfoot puts its foot down, okay, everybody's seen what a big footprint looks like, okay?
Right.
Everybody knows it in their mind, okay? Face eaters and your big guy there, they have claws, okay? These guys do not act like normal steyama in that a normal Bigfoot will take a deer and twist its head off, okay?
Right.
These guys are vicious. They fight. They gut. So they do have longer claws. When I have followed them, it took me a minute to look at the footprint and realize that I was not following a bear. Because bear, when they walk, their claws extend out, and you see them. So you see the whole footprint, right, with the pad, and then more pads over the top of it, and then those claws, okay? These guys have a smaller nail, which is funny because I'm saying smaller, and it's just ironic. It's not that much smaller. But their nails are thicker. They're just, they don't trim them to a certain extent.
Right.
They do break off, but they do use them for fighting. So you're going to see that. You are going to see broken nails when you're tracking them. Okay, it's going to look like a bare footprint, but it's not going to have all 5 claws. It's not. You'll see like 1 or 2 or 3 claws right there.
So if you see something that looks like a huge human footprint or a Bigfoot footprint, and it looks like there's claw marks on the ends of any of the toes, then you need to get really worried.
Yeah, I'm thinking in one of my videos, I think I do have a picture of that where I put it up, where I was talking about them, and there is a footprint there, and you can actually see the claw marks. There's 3 claw marks in it. If
you could send that along, I would really appreciate it, because one of the ways that you can always tell, especially in soft substrate like mud or something, a bear's rear footprint, even regardless of the claws, like maybe it's like shallow mud and it's a black bear, it's a huge black bear, their claws don't extend very far. Unless the mud's very deep, you're not going to see them. They don't have dermal ridges. Bears do not have dermal ridges.
No dermal, no.
So if you see dermal ridges on the track, it ain't no bear.
No, because you would definitely know that because we don't have dermal ridges, like you said. And here's something else that's interesting to me. When a bear walks, okay, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I've only seen it like maybe one time where they have the wound in their foot. You can see from the outline of the track there. You can see where there's a wound. Okay, the Type 3s, the big guys, the face eaters, they are completely different in that their foot pad has scars on it. And you've got to remember that these guys are running all over the forest. They're fighting. They're up on the ridges there where, I don't know about you, but I've tried to walk across rocks with no shoes on. It hurts. Okay? Yeah. And especially granite. Granite is sharp. It has a lot of sharp edges. Okay, so these guys have a lot of scar tissue and a lot of strange marks on the bottom of their feet that bears don't have, okay, because the bear paddles set down. Like I just said, I've only seen one where there's a wound in it. So, excuse me. So you're going to see that this footprint with these claws and maybe scar tissue. You're going to see strange patterns in it, not dermal ridges, but scars. Right. You're going to notice that. So that would be one way to track them. Another way is, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice there. I coughed and I'm losing my voice. I don't even smoke.
Well, let me take over for a second then. Go clear your voice, take a sip of water. Obviously one of the critters that we're looking at the top of the prime suspect list for missing humans is going to be your type 3 or Gugwe, Tugwe, bearman, face eater. Type 4s, wendigos, if you get anywhere near one of those things, good luck. But the other thing I wonder about is some of the other cryptids. I mean, you could just about guarantee, considering the personality and behavior displayed, that some people are going to go disappear as a result of Dogman. And the guest that I had on the last show I was talking to also thinks that there could be some of these people that are disappearing as a result of puckwudgies, especially children, which they seem to have particular interest in. Right. And I was wondering if you wanted to point fingers at any other possible suspects that you think should be on the list.
I do. Don't really want to think about these beings, okay? People say, there's two different types, okay? People say, oh, they're just a fairy, and who believes in fairies? What you do, okay? But then you really do need to stop for a minute and take into consideration that where's the best place that you can run and hide to on the North American continent? Go to the mountains. Because why? Because, like you said, people don't inhabit that place, okay? They do not. So there's a good place to hide and to remain anonymous, okay?
Yep.
So.
And same reason that you find Bigfoot in, large, scary forests and swamps and stuff like that. Difficult terrain. Humans don't live there and generally don't want to go there, but it's rich in things that they can make use of as far as food and whatnot, and the cover's great.
Exactly. So, do I think that puckwudgies could be doing this? I did a show with somebody else, and we were talking about puckwudgies, and I told him straight out, he had captured a picture of one, and I said, he said, oh, I'm gonna give it, take it some gifts. And I said, what the hell's wrong with you? Don't you understand that it's not your friend, okay?
No.
These things are dangerous. These things are dangerous. They specifically are known for taking children, taking women, people that are weaker than they are, okay?
Yeah.
So there's one concern that I have, okay? Do I think that they're out there living in the environment? Hell yes, I do. Because why?
Yeah.
Because people from the earliest time said, you know what, don't go over here because they live there. Okay, well, that's good. And that's like Martin and Rosa down the road. They tell you, hey, don't go to that house. There's gang members that live in that house, and they like to kill people for initiation. Okay, don't do it. So there's one that we need to be aware of. The other one, there again, dogmen. Okay, people who know me and know about me, I do hunting of these things for tribes. These guys, I've got some issues with. Okay, they will take a human and they will eat them, no problem, if they think they can get away with it. Okay, so if they think they're in their area and there's no one around, and quite frankly, some of the stories that Paulides takes and puts in his book is a perfect example. I mean, you've got one park ranger, one forest ranger for how many miles of territory of forest?
Oh, yeah, it's hilariously ridiculous. And you look here, good example is Montana. We have right now, and this is a big number, 250,000 acres are on fire in Montana right now. And in some states, that would be like all the forests in the state and some in the next state. And here, that's like a drop in the bucket. We've got 2 parks in the state that have more than 1 million acres in them. And there's like how many rangers? Each ranger has an area so big that he couldn't cover it in his whole lifetime. It's ridiculous.
Right. So you see, are they opportunistic? Oh, yes. Do they think that they're going to get away with it? Oh, yes. Because there's nobody to stop it, to monitor it, to even, attempt to monitor these guys, okay? Let alone added to the fact that when you bring up this type of subject to to the government or to even for the federal workers there, they're going to look at you like you're nuts. They need to start dialing them, they need to call the insane asylum right away because this person's telling them about these things, okay? First of all, how many people report seeing an upright dog-looking thing? You just don't. You just don't hear that. Okay, so now you're automatically crazy. Okay, add to the fact that it's aggressive and it's actually bothering you while you're camping and it's stalking you. Because there are cases where this has been reported. And still the park rangers are like, no, you're nuts. There's nothing out there. Yeah. So that's because this is an unknown. It's an unknown that either A, they don't know anything about and don't want to research, or B, here's the interesting part, maybe they do know about it.
And it's just such a problem and so difficult to get rid of that they don't want to admit that it's there because it would open a gigantic can of worms they'd have to deal with. Not to mention throwing lots of suspicion on the whole theory of evolution.
Yeah, because you got a dog man walking around. Where does he come from? How does he fit in? And that's an interesting subject. Well, where does he fit in? But the point of the whole matter is we're food for that predator.
Right.
Those two predators.
And this is not a Dogman show, and I don't want to get too far into that. I've listened to your shows on Dogman before. It's very interesting. And, basically there's like three different things going on there. One is a race from another, star system or whatever that are basically harmless and look like dog-headed. Cyanocephalus, I think is what you're referencing there, those guys.
Right.
And then and they go back a long, long way. There was, they were well known by the Greeks and other ancient civilizations. There were whole cities of them that they interacted and dealt with and stuff, so not harmful.
Right.
Then you've got the skinwalkers, and I don't know if you heard the interview that I did with Brenda Harris, and she was talking about her first real, big-time Bigfoot encounter where she was at home at night on the res in her little cabin, and the husband was working the night shift, and this thing was up there messing with her cabin all night long, slapping the walls, letting her see it through the window and stuff. Scared the hell out of her. She was, sure it was like near the house and stuff a bunch of times, and the husband finally gets home in the morning, and, this really, I busted out laughing when she said this, because in any other place, the husband comes home in the morning, the wife's kind of distraught and says there was some kind of huge thing running around here on its hind legs last night messing with the house. And the husband goes, well, you sure it wasn't a bear? Well, in this case, the husband, first thing he says is, you sure it wasn't a skinwalker?
Skinwalker.
Well, it could be a Bigfoot. You sure it wasn't a skinwalker, though? We know those are around here.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Those are around. Those are definitely around. And what's funny is I just was telling someone this, too, in Nevada. They have such knowledge of the skinwalkers that there's actually, there's an attorney there, a divorce attorney. He's an attorney who takes on divorces, and he has specifically to deal with the native people there and the skinwalkers. He actually had filed a lawsuit against a skinwalker, telling that skinwalker that if anything happened to him in the proceedings, that he was going to be held accountable. And he actually got the judge to sign off on it.
Wow. So. Yeah, so there's like no question in their minds whatsoever that this is a real thing and there's really something going on.
Exactly.
And the other one that I heard you talk about is the ones that are sort of like permanently dogmen, can't shift back and forth, sort of extra dimensional. They're created by magic to fight the giants.
Yeah,
and then couldn't really be readily controlled, and we're kind of like, well, you guys can live in this parallel dimension most of the time, and occasionally you come through and visit.
Right, and they step through and come into ours. And for that I have just simple thing to say to people who are non-believers and all of that. What were the first radios made out of? They were made out of crystals, okay? Mm-hmm. So ley lines are magnetic lines, and when you run a magnetic current through a crystal, strange things happen.
Yeah. Strange
things happen. So, do we believe that they can step through? Yes, I do. No problem. And like I said, there are specific types that I hunt for the tribes, and I don't want to have anything to do with them, So are they vulnerable? Yes. Can they be killed? Yes. There is a way to kill them. I'm here to say that and make sure that other people understand that, because I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm going hunting and I'm taking a 12-gauge shotgun with me and I'm going to shoot it in the face. Okay, yeah, that'll work. No.
Yeah, that might work on ordinary flesh and blood critters, but not necessarily on something like that.
Exactly.
And let's not go too far into that because we don't want anybody like buckling on the shield and the magic sword and going out after the werewolf or something. But
please don't.
Just to give you a little bit of a scientific spin on this whole thing, there is actually scientific stuff that backs up what Khat is talking about, and you can look at just very simple things like the Earth has a resonance frequency. Well, and guess what? Everything on Earth has a resonance frequency that's just slightly different than what Earth's, very slightly. But now the Earth's resonance frequency is actually changing. We know that that's occurring right now. Right. So is it moving us into a different vibrational frequency where we're going to start seeing these things more commonly? In other words, is the vibrational frequency changing to bring us closer to the dimension of Earth that they already live in, so making it easier for them to get here? Now, that's one thing that you can worry about. But if you could actually physically change the vibrational frequency of your body, you might be able to actually step into one of these other dimensions. And maybe that's how they're moving back and forth.
Exactly. And, I put up the thing on my Facebook page. It says, everything has a vibrational frequency. Every single thing on this planet does.
Yes, even a rock does, a plant does, everything does.
Yeah, and if you could tap into the vibrational frequency where these beings are, then theoretically you could step into their realm, Mm-hmm. And I believe that there have been instances of that, there's been very strange recordings of people, saying that they're in one spot 1 minute and they step off and move in a different direction and they swear that the entire area around them changes.
Right. I heard like that. The guy was out in the mountains in the winter walking along. He got to the top of a ridgeline, started going down it, and all of a sudden he was in the jungle. Yeah. And she scared the hell out of him for a minute or two. He just kind of stood there in shock, and then he turned around and went back, followed his tracks exactly where he had come from, and he was back on the mountain again. Yeah. So I believe that that's very, very possible, and a lot of native cultures believe that too, you can shift in and out of dimensions. It just takes the ability to sense where they're at, Apparently, I get, like I said, I get a humming, a vibrating in my teeth and my bones. I can feel it, and I have to stop and look. But other people, I don't know what they experience, for being able to do that. But I do know that there are quite a number of reports of that occurring where people have shifted for a few minutes and then shifted back, and they're lost. And and then you start thinking about it, and you remember hearing that there was like people walking in New York, and they stepped off the curb and vanished, So their perception there, if they're vanishing, that means that they're actually going somewhere or some place in a different time, and people are witnessing it. So we covered that story of that one guy in New York that went out to go get something from the store and never came back. And like 40 years later, he appeared on a curb, stepped off the curb, and got hit by a car. And all of his paperwork and everything was stuff that was like didn't exist anymore. There was just stuff that he had in his pockets that was like, oh, this is from a stable that used to be like half a block away 40 years ago. Yep. So it is possible. Theoretically, it is possible. And then you turn around and want to throw it into the mix. Has it happened? I believe it has. It just hasn't been documented to the extent that it needs to be documented. Now, and again, it's one of those things where it's like a lot of stuff can be lumped into paranormal that probably really isn't. And to me, paranormal is just some branch of science that we haven't got a good explanation for yet. And at some point, we're going to catch up with it. Like the whole thing of portals and other dimensions and stuff like that was just the most ridiculous gobbledygook 100 years ago, but you start combining that with modern physics, quantum physics, string theory, super gravity, 11 dimensions, and resonance frequencies, and you start looking at all of it and you go, well, wait, there's physics that backs this up. This could really be happening, and physics says it's possible. Exactly. That was my heyday. That was like my hallelujah moment. Was it 2-3 years ago when NASA came out and finally said, hey, there are portals? I was like posting that up everywhere. I said, see, all you people who say that I am a nut whack job, here you go. Yeah.
Because it's
And that's one of the things you got on me, Khat, because you're naturally receptive to that sort of thing. You were like, when you were a little kid, you could see ley lines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that sort of gives you a leg up on it. You're naturally more attuned to that sort of thing, and you have the better sensory capabilities to deal with it. Now, you're a sensitive. I'm exactly the opposite. I'm an insensitive. I've lived in 3 haunted houses and had absolutely nothing happen to me the whole time I was there. And there was all kinds of occurrences before and after I was living there, but nothing while I was there. And it's either like I'm so insensitive that I'm putting off static that's interfering with the ghost even being there, or I'm just like, I already saw a Wendigo. There's no ghost on earth that could scare me. Don't waste your time. You pick which one you want to believe. But I've gone to these scary places. I was in an underground tunnel system that the local devil worshippers are using for a temple, and walking around looking at that, and taking pictures and shit, going, oh, that's kind of cool, whatever. These people are crazy. Oh, look at all the neat skulls they carved in the wall. Well, isn't that interesting? And no effect. Anybody else is terrified. So I'm one of those people. It's like I'm kind of the opposite of Bear. If it's anything to do with ghosts, Bear doesn't want nothing to do with it. And with me, it's like ghosts. I've seen Wendigo. Ghosts are not scary. Ghosts don't scare me at all.
No, ghosts are not scary. Wendigo, that's something else. Please. I don't know. No, totally. I'm like you. I told you, there's very few things in the woods I will run from, but I've got news for you. I'm running. I see Wendigo.
Yeah. We kind of joke about that. After I managed to get somebody to do a mock-up of what the face looks like and got that out there in public, I had a couple of people contact me and said, hey, we've seen one of these things. And, of course, I was, like, highly suspicious, going, okay, well, tell me about it. And both of them started out with the same thing. Well, that illustration you got isn't exactly right. The teeth are a little bit different and the eyes are a little bit different. And I went, oh, you really did see one. Let's talk about this.
It's like when I did the illustration for you there, because I was trying so hard to explain to the artist. I said, listen, no, because the first one he sent me the picture, and I said, no, it doesn't even look mean. No, I said, let me help you here. No. It's not doing it. It's not cutting it, because to say that you've seen one and then to actually have seen one. There's a difference, okay? I get people all the time say, oh, I've seen Bigfoot. I've seen a dogman. They don't scare me. Really? Wow, you're like the bravest person I've ever freaking known.
Yeah, insanely brave. You shouldn't be anywhere because you'll walk right into the path of a charging buffalo.
That's the one, and you're just, you have no fear, really, because I have fear every day. Here I am. I've interacted with them for 50 years, and I'm about to walk up the hill, and you don't think I break out in a cold sweat when I know one of them's in a bad mood? Oh, yes, I do. I do.
To me, that's just proof that you're sane. I mean, you would have to, no matter how used you to knowing that these things are there, that they're real, you're going to be dealing with them potential. There's no getting used to it. There's a fear factor involved. You're dealing with things that are not 100% known and have every physical capability to just rip you limb from limb like a piece of paper. So if you can deal with one of those things and not be scared, you're insane. It's
I would think so, because my kids, as they were growing up, my daughter just turned 18, my youngest did, and she just told me, she said, Mom, I would love for you to do a television show. She said, just take people out walking in the woods. She goes, because you could have the camera guy walking with you, and you could just let them see what you see. She goes, and I would just love to watch. It'd be like a fear factor thing. She said, you would be walking. She goes, because we've dealt with you. You try really hard not to be afraid, and when you get scared, you always turn us around and huddle us away and stuff. I would love to see a grown man go out there with your mom.
Be like photographer fear factor. Well, we've never had a photographer on the show that's lasted more than 5 minutes. Let's see what today's contestant can do. 3.5 minutes. Oh, we haven't got a winner, but tune in for next show.
Yeah,
photographer fear factor.
Photographer fear factor. Because I seriously have tried over the years. My boys are the closest ones. And I've got 3 boys, and my 3 boys all say the same thing. Okay, 2 of them are like, okay, I'll deal with them if I have to, but I really don't want to do this, Mom, and they grit their teeth and they're pissed off. Then there's my youngest, and everybody laughs over this. My youngest son is 24, and his way of dealing with them, is to not deal with them, okay? We go up in the mountains. He's like, are we getting close? Are we getting close? And I'm like, yeah, we're almost there. Out comes a flask. This is no joke, from Rome, of holy water. He goes to visit Rome every year and gets a flask of holy water, brings it back, and he says, okay, I'm done. Pours it out in front of him. He says, Mom, I had to see him when I was a kid. I'm an adult. Screw this. And he turns around and walks down the mountain. And that's how he handles it.
Right on. Now the kid's got some sense.
Yeah.
So,
you know.
Before we finish on this topic, the sweepstakes of who's the most likely culprit. So we've got the Type 3s, the Gugwes, and where I got that name from is the Micmac Indian Confederation.
Right.
Call them Gugwe. And the first tribe that the white man would have ran into in North America that really had anything to say about them and that they would have known anything about was probably the Micmacs. So I just kind of default went, well, they're the first ones the white man contacted. They call it Gugwe. We'll call it Gugwe.
Yep.
So that's sort of the name that I use for it. And I like Face Eater too, but it's a little bit descriptive and kind of freaks some people out. But yeah, between the Face Eaters and the Pukwudgies, you got two real good front runners there for missing people. Is there anybody else that you'd add to the list?
Like I said, I'll throw a Dogman in there, but and they are from time. You know, I just don't see that as in breeding population that bad for these guys. You know, don't get me wrong, they are breeding, but I don't see it like that. I am going. My bet is going with either the Pukwudgies or else it's going with the Face Eaters. I've stand my ground on that one, and I'm going to keep standing it. Although, if you want to throw in some high stranges, then you can throw in the portals opening over Skinwalker Ranch and big things coming through there.
Right.
You know, so could it be something else that's decided that Earth is food friendly? Sure could. You know, who's to say that it hasn't? You know, I mean, I can't say that.
Supposedly the reptoids like eating humans too, but let's not open up that can of worms. You know, another one that comes to mind that's going to be a lot less common, but could definitely be a culprit for mass disappearances. I had a report from one of my friends up in Alaska that there was a mountain giant in this area, a troll, known to be in this area. And in fact, the neighboring tribe had moved in there several hundred years earlier, and they knew the thing was there when they moved into the area. It was already there. And so they just left this area that lived in alone and didn't go there, which seemed to work out just fine. Right. When it got more civilized and other people started going into that area hunting and disappearing. And apparently within the span of just a couple, 2 or 3 years, they lost like a couple dozen people in this area. And rumor has it that the government finally decided to do something about it and showed up with some black helicopters and a hit team and got rid of it. Well, interestingly enough, like I said, this is like one lone individual that had apparently been in the area for several hundred years. So these things can live an incredibly long time, which is, again, an attribute of the giants. And one of the things that got me interested in this, because they list Oga Bashan as living about 5,000 years. That's one of the main biblical giants in Canaan. And then if you look at, like, you know, your typical human lifespan without technology, maybe around 50 years. So, you know, 1/100th of it. And then if you, like, get something that's sort of in between, like, you know, half giant, half Bigfoot, might live around 500 years. And that kind of sounds like how long these things are living.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll speak to that a little bit in that my group, Kiasa, he relates with his age, and as near as I can figure out with him, he's over 123 years. So, wow. So, and I can attest to that in that I have seen these guys get shot, okay? They get shot. And the wounds that it manifests on them doesn't appear at that particular moment that they get shot, you know? You're not seeing a gaping wound. What you will see is a few days later. You're going to see it. It manifests very slowly. They heal very slowly. They age very slowly. Their children are born big, you know. Bradis, the one that I have the picture of looking at me sideways because he was being bad, he is now a teenager, and he is absolutely enormous. Like I said, he's almost 7 feet tall, I want to say. Yeah, that's about right, 7 feet. He's real gangly, but it took him forever to get to this point. And as I'm watching him now, I noticed that his smell has changed. Everything about him has changed because he's becoming a young adult. And it just seems like the hair doesn't grow as fast on his body. His facial features are still real smooth, like a child, but
doesn't have wrinkles or anything.
Right, and for that matter, the only one in my group that I have that is old, and I've documented her really well, is Lemmy, the oldest female, and she has an atrophied arm, and I'm not sure if she was born with that or if it was from an injury she received early on, but she doesn't make a lot of sense. She almost has like senile dementia, because they never let her be by herself. She's always got someone with her. And she talks about people being here she calls them in the portable caves. And the portable caves are wagons. So.
Which now brings me to another interesting point, and you're practically the only person that can even talk about this. You mentioned several times here, sort of obliquely, that you have conversations with them, and of course, Ron Moorhead has already documented, along with the team that did this years ago with the Sierra Sounds, that they have a language and they talk.
Yes.
And you've mentioned before that you know their language, and it's not really big. They, a little over 100 words or something like that, I think, if I remember right.
Right.
Can you teach us some basic Bigfoot language, like, hi, I'm your friend, or please don't stop me, or useful phrases that someone in the woods running into a Bigfoot might want to know?
Yeah, I can. I actually can. I teach them to all my children. They had to learn early on because I wanted them to know that they meant no harm, and I know everybody says, oh, well, they're kids. Wouldn't you think that they meant no harm? Not necessarily, because they associate humans with being jerks. And they do.
Well, they've got us pegged. No question about that. They got us figured out. That's why they're not hanging around with us, because we're jerks, and they figured it out. Damn it. Well, no, that just makes it so much more difficult. If we weren't jerks, it'd be so much easier. Yeah,
and I mean, I explained that in that I've had one of my males tell me that there was a point before I was, ever introduced to them, that he saw a man kill another man and take his body and dump it right there in the woods, and he was standing there watching him dump it. So he was like, he killed him, and he's like, right. The look that he gave me, he's like, humans are just disgusting things. You kill each other. Shame on you,
Yeah.
And so,
and for them, that's totally taboo. You do not kill members of your own troop or anything like that. Although I understand if they're having wars with a neighboring troop that's maybe not the same type of Bigfoot, that it's all no holds barred, rip their head off.
Right, it's allowed, but I mean, this is genocide of your own tribe, so they're like, what are you doing? I mean, and that's part of the reason that they took me in as a child. People don't realize that when I'm telling them my story, I was raised by 6 men, okay? How unusual is that in any species, okay? So mine were looking at my dad and my uncles like, you've got a little female there, and there's no females in your house. What the hell? What's wrong? What's going on here? And so that was why they allowed me to interact with their female, because I didn't have any, so it was wrong. And that's the way that they look at us. They're like, humans are screwy, and we're dangerous to them. So I always tell people, if you want to, I give people a couple of different pieces of advice. First of all, when you're out and about and you stumble into one of these guys, please don't smile. Everybody does that big smile. Oh, hi, it's me. I'm nice.
God, no. God,
no.
God,
you're showing your teeth. You're showing your teeth. And to them, I have a video up on my other channel, the Hoodoo Woman channel, and it says smiling is not friendly. It's not. It's a sign of aggression. It's nervous, and it's demonstrating to them that there's a couple different things going on through your brain. Because it's going
exactly, and there's there's natural corollaries for this too. If you look at the great apes' behavior, and even like the lower primates, the monkeys and baboons and stuff like that, when they smile, it's a threat. They're telling you that's weapons they've got to tear you apart with. I could smile at Bigfoot and he wouldn't take it as a threat because I don't have any teeth. And he'd just laugh at me and go, you can't do anything. You're more pitiful beauty than a normal human. So, yeah. And you haven't even got a gun with you either. What the hell are you doing out in the woods? You're crazy.
Yeah, you're crazy. We're not going to mess with him. He's crazy.
Well, I noticed that they weren't avoiding me too much. At one point, I figured out where they were hunting. And they had a nice little area there where there was a nice thicket. The deer had to go through it to get down to the yummy grass in the rich people's yards further down the mountain. And they had a choke point there. And they would go down there every night, and I'd hear little wood taps, one tap, okay, I'm in position. 2 taps coming from closer to me, okay, I'm in position ready to chase them toward you. And this would be going on 4 times a week for weeks during the spring. And I was up there camping every night listening to this. And a couple times they came walking really close to camp. I caught one pretending to be a stump about, like 100 feet from where my tent was. And he gave me the stink eye. And then one of the bigger alphas came by and left a 20-inch track. And at one point I was sitting in the tent listening to these guys, and it was early in the evening. And they must not have got into position yet because I heard the one going by the side of the camp. And my God, what a stink. It smelled like if you took an entire refrigerator full of meat, unplugged it, and left it sit for a month, and then opened the door, it still wouldn't smell that bad. And I was just sitting there thinking for a minute, okay, now wait a minute. We got type 2s up here, or are these friggin' face eaters? Because this thing smells horrible. And then I started thinking about it. Well, there's no green stuff growing yet. It's early in the spring. Probably all they're eating right now is deer. And they're not being real careful about cleaning the blood out of their hair. So they're starting to smell really frickin' bad.
Yeah.
Well, dear, I'm looking at the clock here, and we are about out of time. In fact, we're over the time limit at this point, and only because the system will allow us to get away with that are we even going to get any of this recorded. But obviously, you and me could talk for like 3 or 4 days straight. So we're definitely going to have you back on the show again. I hope you'd be willing to come on again because I had so much fun talking to you. I'm sure that the listeners out there would love to hear from you again. And you pretty much got an open invitation to come on back on the show whenever you want to and share some more of your knowledge on steoma and face eaters and the other dangerous stuff out there that's running around that really we should know something about. Once again, it was so great that you would come on the show and spend some time with me and talk about this stuff. Really appreciate it. And definitely, I'm extending the hand saying anytime you want to come back on the show and do another episode, I'd love to have you back, Kat.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I would love to come back. I love talking with you because you have knowledge.
Well, and that's one of the things that I love about having guests like you, because I look for the ones that really know a lot about what they're talking about, and I particularly look for people that know something about certain things about Bigfoot-related stuff that I don't know, because I can't talk to people about things that I don't know. So I need to find guests that can fill in some of those blanks on the stuff that I don't know. And you are just one of the greatest resources out there, because you're not only knowledgeable about the Sasquatch people, but you've got tons of other experience with these other cryptids that are like, I don't even want to deal with these damn things. You can take care of that. That's all your job. I'm trying to learn about the ones that are dangerous and figure out how to avoid them. That's pretty much what I'm up to at this point. And I'm going to share that information with everybody else. Here's the dangerous ones. Here's how to avoid them. And that is all the people need to know.
That works good for me. You should write it. That's what it is.
Duke on what to avoid in the woods and how to avoid it. With special guest Khat Hansen and many others. Telling stories of humans being ripped limb from limb. Let's give you plenty of good examples. You think missing 411 is scary? No, that's nothing compared to what actually happens. That's what's really scary.
That's scary. Oh, my God. Here's the sad part. You and I live in that, okay? We delve into that, okay? Everybody else runs away from it, and you and I are like, no, we need to study this.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, for me, it's akin to if I lived here in Montana and they said there was no such thing as a grizzly bear. But people are seeing grizzly bears, and occasionally somebody would get mauled by one. But they still keep saying there's no such thing as grizzly bears. Well, you damn well better believe that I would be out there trying to document the existence of grizzly bears and get all the information I could on them and spread it around to everybody so people don't die by accident from running into one of these grizzly bears that they say don't exist.
Thank you. That's exactly, and that's our message for today. They do exist. They do. So do your Elmer Fudd. Be very, very quiet, okay, when you're out in the woods, because they're
just, be aware of your surroundings. If you're going to go out camping in the woods, you'd want to have the right camping gear, right? And you'd want to know what animals are in the area that you're in. And you'd want to know, if you're in an area with grizzly or mountain lions, how to avoid being attacked by one of these things. Well, it's no different. So it's just, common sense safety first, safety last, safety always. And don't take stupid chances. And if you know what it is that you're dealing with, you have a much better chance of never getting into the situation where you're even confronted by it, much less have to deal with an aggressive version of fill in the blank, whatever it is.
Exactly. And that makes you a safer, saner, smarter person.
Exactly. And the other thing is, too, if you know how to avoid situations that will get you into this, it's going to make it better for them, too, because they're going to have more knowledgeable humans out there going, oh, that's an X structure. I shouldn't go walking past that. It's their territory. They might get mad.
That's my favorite, Please don't go hang on them, and please don't take pictures of your kids falling all over them, because what that does is just incite them and make them totally, so if you live anywhere near where they are, for God's sakes, do not take a whiz on their tree structures.
Oh, God help you if you do that. You're so asking for it. That's a challenge. That is a challenge to whoever made that tree structure, and they're going to smell it and go, oh, I know where that came from. I'm going to go accept that challenge. And then your life will be miserable, assuming you survive any longer.
Exactly.
But anyway, safety first, safety last, safety always. Well, I'm going to let you go here. Want to say thanks to all the fans for tuning in and for listening to another show. And say fans, and it's like every time I say that I cringe. It's like, oh God, I've got fans. That's so weird. Well, thanks to my listeners for tuning in to another episode of Really Not Comfortable Having Fans. Thanks to my listeners. Love you guys. Keep listening into the show. And like I always like to say at the end of every program, we have problems in our lives. We have things going on. Right now we got hurricanes and huge fires and stuff in the country. Do your part. Be part of the community. Be part of the society. Be part of the people of the United States. Reach out. Help everyone to the extent that you're capable of doing. And always try and be safe. Be kind to everyone else. And no matter what, God help you, do not hug the Wookiee.